Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Reem Garash, partner in FHS, and joining me today in this session is Mr. Elie Milky, who's the Vice President for Development in Radisson Hotel Group, and Mr. Moustafa Saeed, who's partner in Wisefields, which is a law firm focusing on the real estate and hotels and tourism industry as well. So let's start with you, Elie. So the Ministry of Tourism lately have launched a set of regulation and changed the regulation dramatically, especially in the classification system. The immediate effect of that change was down. So many of hotels which were in 5 stars were downgraded to 4 stars, especially in the holy cities. So my question for you is the following. Did that downgrade affected your relationship with the operator, with the investors? And if yes, how so?
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you for the question. I believe most of these changes may have impacted unbranded and independent hotels more than they have impacted maybe branded hotels because of branded hotels being more compliant and all of that. Having said that, so far it has not have a major impact on our situation on the ground. If in the case of Park & by Radisson, let's say it gets downgraded from 4-star to 3-star, it's not a major issue for us because at the end of the day, it's a mid-scale hotel. So we work around it, and if we need to do certain exercises and activities to bring it back to 4-star, if it's feasible for the owner, that's something we're happy to do. It doesn't impact our relationship with the investor per se. It actually makes us work together to see what the best way forward is. If you look at the big picture and you zoom back to how many of these brands, including ourselves, moved from Europe and the US into the Middle East, we had to adapt with the local market and local regulations and the local market and the local trends. So that's something we've been used to, and that's something we're used to adapting to.
Okay, thank you. So Moustafa, since Elie did not witness any cases, I mean, everything was going well, alhamdulillah, for Radisson, did you witness any cases raising from this issue?
Thank you very much.
Indirectly or directly?
Thank you very much, Reem. I mean, I would say the classification system is really a system geared towards consumers. I think traditionally when you're dealing with management agreements and franchise agreements, the operators are looking at long term, so they might have a 20-year agreement, and they understand, owners and operators understand that classification requirements will change from time to time, and so normally there isn't a contractual obligation to maintain a 5-star rating or a 4-star rating. It's normally mid-scale, upper mid-scale, luxury at the premium end. So for the reasons that Elie's mentioned, I think it probably doesn't have the same impact whenever there's a change in the classification system.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I have to ask you about MISA, which is the Ministry of Investment effort to encourage the foreign investor. So there have been rumors everywhere about the allowing foreign investors to invest in the holy cities. So do you see this coming shortly? And what's the status of that law?
No, thank you very much. I mean, I think the government has announced that the law will be coming. It's always a question of how long is imminent. I think it is fairly imminent or short term. Certainly when we speak to developers in the holy cities of Mecca and Medina, they are certainly expecting that law to be published. I think land prices in the holy cities have reflected in anticipation of that law. And certainly there's been other regulatory changes. So for example, the Capital Market Authority in Saudi Arabia now allows funds with non-Saudi investors to own real estate in holy cities. So that's a step of allowing institutional money to be invested in Mecca and Medina. Once you allow that, then the next step, logically, is to have individual consumers having ownership or use of rights. So the nature of the rights that will be given remains to be determined, but certainly my expectation in speaking with industry colleagues, speaking with developers in the holy cities, is that change in law should be coming.
Mm-hmm. So Elie, you said previously that you will adapt to the country regulation, whatever it was. So what will be the case if, in terms of development? Because not only the Ministry of Tourism changes regulation, also to get the development permit, also a few rules have been changed. So what if you face like a huge conflict between, for example, the development standard for Radisson and the development standards to get permit for development permit for 5-star hotel? Have you witnessed a case like this? And if yes, what would you do?
Yes, we have. In short, it's delayed our openings slightly. So with new government regulations and requirements for permits, for instance, a drawer needs to be by the side of the table or the size of a pillow. What happens in this case is owners cannot open, we cannot open the hotel for the owners unless the ministry gives the sign-off and gives the permit to open the hotel. And we've had very recent examples. In Riyadh, for instance, we opened 3 or 4 hotels in the past year or two, and none of the hotels open on time for different reasons, which is normal. But what happened was that we delayed the opening by 2 or 3 months because we had to replace some of the pillows so what we do in this case is we have to comply. The owners understand, they know it's not our fault. We know it's not the owner's fault. They know it's not because of our standards. They know because it's a regulation that has changed. On the other hand, we have been yes, this regulation came from the ministry and from the municipality, but on the other hand, the Ministry of Tourism has been very supportive in helping us get these permits. So these requirements had come last minute, let's say, but they were very, very helpful in helping us go through this together. So instead of having a delay of 6 months, we had a delay of 3 months, for instance. So we worked around it.
Very clear, thank you. So I have to ask you, Moustafa, regarding the regulation, the new destination, for example, Red Sea, or for the new urban development project, just like Masar project, is there certain, or is there a different kind of regulation, for example, to get the development permit? Because I know that they have their own like codes and standards. So how's the case there? How the investor would go there?
Yeah, it's a little bit of an all-encompassing question because there's different communities throughout Saudi Arabia. Generally, most projects are subject to what we call the base economy law. So the typical laws of Saudi Arabia, the local amana, the Royal Commission, if there is one, etc. We do see a trend towards some of the giga projects, towards developing their own special zones, commissions, however you wish to call it. I think that's still a work in progress. I expect that, my personal views, there'll be some form of hybrid. Laws that are introduced for particular giga projects. It won't be like a DIFC approach, which completely removes the laws of Dubai for the Dubai International Financial Center. I don't expect that we'll go down that approach in Saudi Arabia, but I think there'll be a hybrid.
The water ceremony will begin at the summit stage in 10 minutes. Please make your way there. The summit stage in 10 minutes.
And so one good example is the Economic Cities and Special Zones Authority, which has its own land registry, its own title deeds. Even that works very closely with the local regulators when it comes to the development permitting process. So, so I think as a matter of practice, we'll expect to see base economy laws and special economic zone laws sort of marrying together to provide the permitting process for a real estate development in Saudi Arabia.
Okay, thank you. So recently, we've seen a change, or let's say a certain trend in the announced project, either in the type of project or the type of contracting with the international hospitality company. So we've seen lately like more of franchising contract has been announced. So, and I know Radisson don't do any franchising contract, they do a full HMA contract. So what have you done as an international company to adopt that kind of trend?
We've been predominantly a management company from the start. We started getting into franchising in Europe many years ago. A big percentage of our hotels in Europe are franchises. But recently in the region, we've started accepting franchising as the because the Middle East and Africa region, for instance, is a developing market. But gradually, some countries are becoming mature markets. And as markets mature, then you get the likes of white label operators, and you get the likes of franchising agreements that will actually not harm your brand. And if you want to stay competitive, you have to adapt. So in the region, maybe only 10 to 15% of our contracts are franchises. However, in Saudi Arabia, we haven't signed any franchise agreement yet until this year. We expect to sign our first franchise, hopefully in May, this month, in Saudi Arabia. So this is going to be the beginning of a new era in Saudi for us.
Well, congratulations for that. It's really good news.
Thank you.
So, Moustafa, as we see those trends, so obviously there are a few investors who already signed a contract, full HMA contract, let's say 5 or 7 years ago. And since they gain some more in-depth knowledge in this industry and getting a little bit mature, as Elie said, perhaps they might want to shift to franchising contract. So what is the direct impact on the current, contracting between the investors and the operation company?
Yeah, thank you, Reem. Very good question. I think certainly on a global basis, franchising is very common. In the US, in Europe. Generally, when the brands consider a region to be an emerging market, they will focus on management contracts. And when they develop the confidence that the brand standards can be enforced, they'll generally allow a more franchising model to emerge. I think from my perspective, what we're seeing a lot is owners wanting to have the right to franchise. So they'll have an initial management contract and then what we call a manchise right, which is a right to flip into a franchise. And that is when normally that's a collaborative process between the owner and the operator to give confidence to the brand that the owner has the capabilities, the team and expertise, whether it's a white label, as Tapan mentioned with Velour, or the owner's in-house team. It's just a question of giving confidence to the brand that the brand standards of those properties can. So I think we're starting to see Saudi Arabia and other countries in the Middle East moving towards a franchise model. I was speaking to one of the big 4 brands yesterday, and they mentioned that in Saudi, they're looking potentially having more franchise contracts than management contracts.
Having said that, just to add to what Moustafa was saying, we have started doing that as well, having a clause in the agreement that will allow the owner in a few years to flip the agreement from a management contract to a franchise contract. However, we're very cautious because we want to make sure, as Moustafa said, that we need to have the right to approve it. It has to be at our discretion. The owner has to prove that they have a management structure to be able to run the hotel under a franchise. We have to approve the white label operator that they appoint. And so these will protect us. At the same time, we warn owners that yes, there is a trend towards franchise, but many new owners get excited by the idea that they want to run their own hotel, especially when they don't have any hotels that they run. So we try to explain to them running a hotel is not as easy as it sounds. It may be 30% cheaper for you, but it's going to be more expensive on your operation and on your infrastructure and on your headache and on your time and on your resources. So it's still a battle to just remind an owner that franchising may save you a little bit less money, but it's going to cost you much more later on. That's it.
So I have a question. I'm just curious. What if the HMA contract was in favor of the operator? Will the operator be willing to accept to change it to a franchise just to make sure to continue that strategic relationship for another term, like for another 20 years? Was that something possible?
If we reach the end of the term of an agreement, we have renegotiated an agreement into a new management agreement.
Okay.
In some cases, we have flipped it into a franchise when the owner has appointed the right white label operator, or has proven a management structure. So yes, we do look at that, because the idea is we don't see it as in favor of us, in favor of the operator. It has to be in favor of both parties. And if we find something that is not in favor of the owner I'll be more than happy to change that when the right time comes.
Great, thank you. So,
Sorry, Reem, just on that, we have seen cases where management contracts have been flipped into franchises, even without any particular clause in the contract. So the owner and the brand have had a discussion. Normally with a portfolio owner, not a single hotel owner, they have a much wider relationship than any one property, and they'll have that discussion and say, we want to flip, X and Y hotels to a franchise, and we have seen that applied in practice as well.
Great. So I think the last question for you both is, what are practices to ensure proactive approach to all of those regularity changes in Saudi, especially that we witnessed so many changes in the last 2-3 years? I mean, even for me as a Saudi, it's become really hard to keep up with everything going on.
Difficult question. I mean, I think the regulations will always change, and particularly as we're in a fast-moving jurisdiction, regulations will change. I think that's it's a collaborative effort, in my view, between owners and operators. Normally, there is a transition period when I think the pillows example that Elie mentioned is a little bit unusual. Normally, laws are announced with some prior notice, feedback is given. Measures, corrective measures are implemented. So I think, but we are in a fast-paced jurisdiction. Laws will change because governments see fit to adapt to a fast-changing environment. So I think the global reach that brands do have. I think it's also important to have brands, speaking from the from the owner's perspective, that do have an experience in Saudi Arabia, do have a team in Saudi Arabia, have more than one hotel, so that issues that come up in one particular jurisdiction or one hotel can be recognized and applied in other jurisdictions as well.
I think proactively as well is the government agencies are listening to us, and we're giving constant feedback. They're engaging with us. They want to be engaged. They want to listen. And I attended just 2 nights ago the Invest in Saudi event on the sidelines of the conference on Monday evening. Was it Tuesday evening? I can't remember anymore. But it was Monday evening. And they presented all their tax incentives, investment incentive schemes. They presented how they want to help the investor, the strategy for many cities. I met with the Asir Development Authority, with the Sharqiya Development Authority. They are there to incentivize investors to lease land with grace periods and favorable terms. And they want to help with any regulation that may be bureaucratic or difficult. So I think what's happening is they're listening to us, they're improving the system, they're improving the process, and you cannot get any better support from any government anywhere else. So I think it's a very positive direction that we're taking.
Well, I completely agree with you, especially with the recent announcement of the incentive for investment incentive in Tier 2 cities. I mean, that was a big plus, although it's not very clear yet. I mean, the percentage of deduction or waiver for the government fees were not clear, but at least it's just like give some sort of, encourage the investors to go to Tier 2 cities, because what will be the point if I have an opportunity in Riyadh and I have another opportunity in Taif? What will encourage me to go to Taif if I'm 100% sure that I will get better return of investment in Riyadh? So do you think this step, I'm sure it will encourage, but to which extent it will encourage investors? Would you suggest to see do you think that we'll see immediate result of it, or to take, let's say, a year or two to see how serious are those new regulations will be imposed?
If we plan to see today, to start a discussion, it will be in a year or two, simply because it's an untested proposition. It's in many untested markets. Just yesterday, I sat with the Asir Development Authority, and they said, we have a land bank. So we got our investors who are non-Saudi from Europe who are looking to expand in Saudi Arabia. And we said to them, look, you're looking for a land bank. Here's the development authority telling you we have a land bank and we have favorable terms. And this is the beginning of a conversation. Now, is going to materialize, we don't know. But at least the intention is there, the vision is there, and the support is very much appreciated.
I completely agree with you. So thank you so much for joining our discussion today.
Thank you, Reem.
Thank you for attending this discussion. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.